Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining this session. My name's Tim Hayden. I'm from Epsilon. We're a Databricks partner, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you today about marketing running on IT's data and how IT really holds the keys to growth. I think when you look at the data being stored in Databricks, there's a ton of information. There's product logs, there's transaction records, support tickets, fulfillment times, everything marketing ultimately needs to drive their next 100 million in revenue. That's a bold claim, I know, but there truly is value in that data in Databricks, and it's gold. It enables marketing to understand the customer journey, identify high-value segments, personalized messaging, prove ROI, all these kind of things. The challenge is, most of this data is invisible to marketing. It's not on their radar, they're not aware of it, it's hidden because of that lack of awareness. So today's conversation isn't just about data, it's about unlocking that growth in the data and turning the data that you already manage into something your business can act on. And it starts with realizing the power you already hold and the value in those assets. So this session is about turning the lights on and showing you just how powerful your data is. So let's start with where we are today. Databricks sits at the center of your enterprise, not just as a data platform, but as a hub that connects the entire business. It's pulling in data from finance, HR, service, supply chain, sales, and of course, marketing. It holds both structured and unstructured data, purchase records, product interactions, customer support tickets, site visits. All of this is being captured and stored in that central repository. It's important because while this data was originally collected for operational or analytical needs, it's a tremendous, often untapped resource for marketing. Why? Because it's not just data, it's intent, it's signals, it's behavior, it's identity, it's all of these things. And when you unlock that data and you activate it for marketing, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes marketing gold. So now that we've established Databricks at the center of that ecosystem, let's start to take a look at how that can be, how that actually is used and leveraged by marketing. So from a CMO's point of view, they're trying to do four principal things. They're trying to acquire customers, finding new customers, that means. They're trying to retain customers, ensuring that consumers keep coming back. They're trying to drive up customer lifetime value for customers that are already engaging with a brand or advertiser. And finally, marketing efficiency. They need to be able to prove that every dollar they are spending is driving some sort of measurable outcome. Now, to accomplish these things, there are four foundational capabilities that they actually need to be capable of executing on. The first is analysis and insights. You need to be able to understand your existing consumers, how they're interacting, for example, how they're purchasing. Second is audience building. You need to be able to reach the right people, right? You need to be able to create those audiences, define them, articulate them, and then you need to be able to measure them and prove that the goals you set out to actually worked. Now, the success of all this rests on accurate identity. I want to be able to make sure that the person I set out to reach, I actually reached, and that it is truly the same person, not just the same cookie or the same IP address. You need to be able to very clearly identify that that's actually the same individual. So IT really is critical to marketing success, not just because they're typically sat on top of all that data, but they're sat on top of the technology as well. So if we know what marketing is trying to achieve, let's just take a look at what that looks like in practice when everything happens the way it should. So here we've got three examples. The first is a major CPG brand. they were looking to enhance and expand their view of consumer purchases. That was their marketing goal. They were able to identify 11 million additional addressable consumers. So that's obviously, they've significantly grown the number of consumers that they can reach. They then ultimately needed to be able to measure those consumers and analyze those consumers. So they then significantly increased by 350% the number of consumers they're actually able to measure, which then goes back to being able to prove those results. And they were able to deliver this in a time frame of 1 to 2 days. So they're actually able to execute, view those results, see those outcomes in a significantly shorter time, accelerating the time to value for those marketing objectives. In the second example here, we saw a coffee chain that was able to increase incremental visits by 45%. They tapped into product purchase data to find high-value consumers. They then were able to grow the high-value win rates by over 17 million, driving a lift in that return on investment. And then they had over a 20% lift in media effectiveness for audiences compared to third-party audience as well. And in this third example, a global brewing company, they were focused on future-proofing their identity strategy, and in 3 months they identified 1.3 million new addressable prospects, and they were doing all of this without cookies, reduced their media cost by 11%, and were able to find and address those 2 million real people as well. So at the core of every successful marketing transformation is a simple but often overlooked truth. Marketing owns the outcomes and IT owns the infrastructure. That can create somewhat of a tension between the two groups, because marketing wants something fast, they want it now, they want to launch campaigns tomorrow, there's this real sense of urgency, but IT is more focused on scale, security, governance, and rightly so. It's not the Wild West. What makes collaboration hard between IT is that, and marketing is that IT often knows what's flowing through the pipes, but not the business value it can present for marketing. And that's something we really want you to walk away with today, because, like I say, something that IT are perhaps taking for granted really does have value for marketing. So then you have marketing who aren't always fully aware of what's technically possible without compromising compliance or stability. In the marketing world, we have to work within frameworks of compliance and governance as well. There are standards and regulations that we have to adhere to. So we have to take those into account too. But what happens in this world, sometimes as marketers we struggle. Data is sat in silos, requests get stuck in ticket queues, valuable insights stay hidden, opportunities to grow are lost, or maybe they're missed or delayed. But ultimately, we're trying to eliminate those things. And when IT and marketing come together, they share context, they align on outcomes, everything changes. You get a shared foundation, not just of data, but of trust, priorities, roadmaps, execution. So collaboration really is critical. But again, let's take a look at, let's make this real. Let's take a look at a few different examples of where first-party data that IT is already managing and what value there might be in it for marketing. I've pulled out, is that 5, 6 examples here, or 7 examples here, of first-party data that IT is probably working with today, and then on the right-hand side, where marketing could actually be leveraging that data. So let's just look at the bold examples here. Wi-Fi or in-store location data. Marketing are probably looking at network traffic, they're looking at security, right? That's what IT are capturing, Wi-Fi and location data for. in, say, a retail store. That has usefulness for marketing because it gives them some insight on the foot traffic and potentially geofencing campaigns, right? If we come down to login session and frequency, IT are tracking the number of logins. They're tracking the successes and failures of those logins, the passwords forgotten, right? Again, that's tracked in access logs, session timeouts. But marketing would actually find that information useful because there's some intent signals there. There's loyalty. You can tie that customer into the customer journey. Imagine being able to tie this login data with this Wi-Fi or in-store data, right? These two things come together naturally and are useful for marketing. Chatbot transcripts. IT might be looking at it from a bot performance perspective, but you can actually pull out an awful lot of insights. You can use campaign triggers, you can use keywords. It can give you insights into what FAQs need to be created. The next one down, live chat sentiment. IT are probably using it for NLP accuracy testing, but again, it's going to facilitate the ability to do real-time resolution and follow-ups for marketing. So there's a tremendous amount of data here that IT are looking at, but when looked at through the marketing lens, there's a whole different set of opportunities. Can I get a quick show of hands for how many people are maybe in just a pure IT or data science role? Just raise your hand if you're in. Okay. And anybody here who is in marketing, dedicated? Yeah. So we know this conference is focused on, the stakeholders in and around IT, but we would love for you to go back to your teams, to your IT teams, and share what you've learned and how that IT data could actually be used by marketing. So if you want to get your phones out, we've actually put a quick cheat sheet together. You can get it from this QR code. There is if you enter your email, you can actually have the link emailed to your email inbox. But there are 50 first-party use cases there that will kind of start to shed some light on how that IT data can be used by your colleagues in marketing. So the next thing is, how do you get started? Well, the first step is data ingestion and normalization. I'm sure you already have a lot of data coming into Databricks today from many different sources. We talked about them at the beginning of the presentation. The first thing you really need to do from a marketing perspective is construct identity. You always want to start with first-party data, so those login details, whether they're logging in on your website, in a mobile app, using a loyalty card at the checkout, whether it's happening online or offline. You want to take that first-party data, roll those up into households, and then you probably want to go to an identity provider like Epsilon. Yeah, that's one of the things that we do with Databricks, to bridge the gaps in that identity, to dedupe any duplicate records. If you're like me, you have more than one email address. I'm T. Hayden at Outlook, T. Hayden at Gmail, Tim.Hayden at Epsilon, and you need to make sure as a marketer that you recognize that's one person, not three separate individuals. Otherwise, your marketing data is going to be out of date. It's going to be, you're going to be trying to spend marketing dollars multiple times over because you think it's three people, not one. So identity really is the cornerstone which you build everything off of. And then you want to start attaching these events and attributes to the consumer. So when they pick up and call customer service, when they come into the store, like I said before, they use their loyalty card or their credit card. In some instances, you can tie transactions to a consumer, even if that consumer isn't actually using a loyalty card. So you can do some pretty interesting things. You then probably want to add third-party attributes. You're not necessarily, as a retailer, going to know the age, socioeconomic, behavioral information outside of your store. So you want to partner again with a third-party provider to get those attributes and insights for marketing. And then, of course, governance and privacy. I talked about regulations. You need to make sure that you're complying to those regulations as it relates to marketing. There we go. So returning to this slide that we saw at the beginning, of the session, right? Marketing can obviously use, all of this enterprise data, but marketing is also creating data that can be used by the rest of the enterprise. Sales, marketing data can be used for segmentation, lead nurturing, targeting higher value accounts. We see this particularly useful in FSI and B2B situations. Customer service and support, where clients are phoning up with questions, Q&As. There's intent satisfaction data in there that, again, is useful for marketing. Finance enables revenue analysis, lifetime value analysis, LTV modeling. That information is tremendously useful when it comes to deciding how much to spend on advertising. What is the lifetime value of the consumer? Because if we know the lifetime value of the consumer, we can then better budget how much we're spending on marketing initiatives. If I'm selling mortgages, then the lifetime value of my consumer is far, far bigger than if I'm selling socks, shirts, and coffee. But I think, even companies like Starbucks, who are selling, yes, coffee to everybody, see a tremendous lifetime value because they're able to retain that consumer, they're able to market to that consumer, and they do that through a whole means of marketing tactics. Supply chain and operations. You absolutely want to make sure when you're running marketing campaigns that you're running marketing campaigns for products that are actually in store, right? And when you're working as a national retailer, I don't know, Best Buy, my go-to electronics store, I live in the Northeast, but you want to make sure that the promotions you're running in the Northeast actually have those products in store. You don't want to run promotions against products that aren't in store, because again, you'll be wasting your marketing dollars. So we can carry on talking about these little tangible examples, but again, we know you're an IT crowd principally, and we kind of want to open your minds up to the way this data can be used, by marketing. I think just before I leave this slide, the HR one is an interesting one. We do work with a major airline that is actually using employee advocacy to promote products and services to consumers. So even HR can play a role here in delivering value to marketing. So about Epsilon, right? You've heard about some of the things that can be done with marketing data. As we move towards the back end of the presentation here, I do want to share 3 different ways in which we partner with Databricks. We have marketing technology products and advertising solutions built on Databricks. We have a CDP, we have a clean room, we have a marketing hub, and we have loyalty solutions. And some of the biggest brands out there with some of the most complex marketing needs. Think about global CPG brands that have, global CPG companies that have hundreds of brands underneath. Think about major financial institutions that have tens of millions of clients. Think about the coffee store you go to in the morning, whether it's pink and orange or green and black. So we work with those kind of companies that have these huge, very complex problems that they need sophisticated solutions for, and our platforms are supporting those. Furthermore, we have a tremendous data asset at our disposal, and we can really push this anywhere. We've enabled data sharing on some of those data assets so we can push them directly into Databricks. But we're principally there to augment and add additional data to your first-party data that's already there. So if you're trying to find new consumers, we have over 280 million individuals, principally in the US, and up to 8,000 attributes on each one of them. We know people's age, their demographics, whether they're living at home, whether they have young families, whether they have dogs, whether their car lease is up for renewal. We have all that kind of demographic, intent, behavioral, economic information that, again, is tremendously valuable to a marketer. And we saw in the examples earlier just how that data was driving real results. And then we have a bench of experts. You'll speak with, 10, 20 different system integrators while you're here at the Databricks event. We stick our flag in the ground in and around not just system integration, but system integration as it relates to marketing and advertising. That's what we really know. We're not just technical experts in the underlying platform, we're domain experts, which becomes tremendously important as you're trying to go to market and run and grow and deliver on marketing objectives. So we've covered a lot. What are the takeaways here? Well, first off, make sure you as IT stakeholders co-own that customer data foundation with marketers. Use that little cheat sheet as a crib sheet when you go back to facilitate those conversations with marketing, right? Do an inventory. I mean, you probably already have inventories, of the data that you're actually looking at, and have a brainstorm with marketing. Explore how you could be using the data that you perhaps take for granted, but marketing could truly be driving value from. Build a shared roadmap for transformation once you've gone through that data. Create a unified first-party data strategy that powers those outcomes. So not all the data you manage is going to be useful to marketing, but start to identify and prioritize, the data that will be. I always like to think about it on two axes, right? There's stuff that's easy to do and has high value. That's the stuff you need to be focused on first, right? The easy, high-value stuff, and you deprioritize the tougher, low-value stuff, right? It's a two-dimensional graph. Identity resolution is critical to making this stuff efficient. We talked about the 3 email address example earlier. You want to make sure you're marketing to the same individual at the right frequency. You don't want to over-index. You don't want to be overpaying to reach individuals. And then make sure marketing and IT are working as strategic collaborators, right? That needs to be the operating model. I've worked with a bunch of clients, and it's unfortunate because the communication between marketing and IT is fragmented. Marketing give IT requirements, IT come back with questions, and sometimes you're in this perpetual Q&A session, which can become very frustrating. So ground it in what you have today and what you're able to activate and execute on today, and then build that vision into the future. Capitalize on those resources you already have. It will be far more cost effective. And then, Databricks and Epsilon, we're here to enable that speed. We're here to enable that scale. We're here to enable that governance, bring that domain expertise to the table, and act, as that glue between IT and marketing. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I have dropped the QR code for anybody who missed it. My name's Tim. I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.